Hi everyone, it's the Rangers Review Tactics podcast. We still don't really have a name for this, Adam Thornton, but we are here to talk about Rangers 3, Hibs 3. I'm going to focus specifically on what happened because Rangers were 2-0 up and cruising in the game and contrived to drop points. I'll link the article as ever that we are referencing in the description below. Adam, it was just me after the Old Firm game, so you missed. We've been tacticking. What would you call it? Tacticking? You can't call it. I can't. I'll get hammered for that. Talking about tactics for a couple of years together, and I still don't think we've spoken about an Old Firm win. It was just me that was on. And I thought, just to take it into this game, we're obviously not going to speak about the Old Firm game, but at the end, made the point of long shots maybe in that game were fine, talking about the variance attached to Rangers' game and the kind of direct nature of it and how would that translate to the upcoming away games. And I think we quite quickly got the answer there. So there's a lot to cover, and I think, as ever, a lot of caveats to put into the conversation. But just your initial thoughts on the 90 minutes at Easter Road.
Well, yeah, I guess first of all, the Old Firm game, was very obviously a one-off. I don't know anybody who thought that was going to be the catalyst for anything. It's one of those games in a bottle, same as we've seen Spurs and Malmo. The manager keeps referencing these games, and yes, we do well in those games. And he sort of scratches his head as to why we can't do well in the other games. Well, first of all, that's kind of your job to fix that, and has been the job of successive managers who are unable to deal with both sides of the game. I guess the European/Celtic games and the domestic part. So yes, it's fine to say we did well in those games. Therefore, it's a surprise that we're not doing well in these games. I don't think it is, because we can't break teams down well enough. We, for whatever reason, there becomes a point in a game where we sit off. We've seen it at 2-0 inexplicably in this game, where sort of sit off, become a little bit ragged. Hibs make a change and we can't adapt to it. When games are less like a basketball game, we do worse. We don't have the control. And I know that's something you spoke about. You spoke about today. There's obviously quite a lot of ways that you can get control. It could be physically dominating your man. It could be ball possession. It could be a tactical tweak to get yourselves back into the game like Hibs did. For whatever reason, we're incapable of doing that. I can't, off the top of my head, remember too many times where the manager has made a change, as in a non-substitute change, a change that has won a game for us or became the catalyst for this or that. Subs coming on change the games, as we know. We've spoken about that before. That upturn in form has been because Haji's come in, Igamane's come in, Raskin's been playing well, Danilo's getting back amongst the goals. There hasn't been some grand new plan. It's been players, and I think that's sort of what we see. And I think this game potentially sums that up. We do very, very well. Igamane does great. A couple of great assists for his first two goals too. I really liked both of these goals. I liked how calm I liked how well he did against Bashiri, first of all. I don't think we've really seen him in too much of a leading the line, target man, physical battle before.
Yeah, maybe aside from Spurs, I agree that was because he wasn't really drifting to the left wing at all, was he? He was kind of the focal point.
No, definitely. I think there's been that, and then Nice, you could say there was an element of imposing his physicality on the strikers. But I liked him for this first goal. That tenacity, he won the ball back, beat a couple of men, switched out wide. Good pick out from Haji. I really enjoyed that cutback. We're big cutback fans here because we like to score easy goals, and that's the easiest way to score goals. I know it seems simple, but that generally is how it works. But I liked how he delays his run as well, and the touch. It's not just running in the box and trying to get an inexplicable flick on at the near post, like say Dessers would, or hang at the back post like Morelos would. It's that sort of timing of, I'm going to create the space for Hadji to find me, and then the finish is great. And similarly with the second one, that's a nice ball in from Barrie, and a really, really strong header that maybe the keeper should have done better with, but it is in the top corner. So yeah, I guess that's the good, really. I know you've got a lot to chat about in terms of the changes that Hibs made to their shape and how they got themselves back into the game. But I guess if we start with the good, I was really happy with bits of the attacking play in that first half an hour. Were still a little bit too wasteful for my liking, but I think we all know that.
Yeah, we'll get into Igamane, but let's talk about the kind of flow of the game overall. Got the trend line here first and foremost, which kind of shows what watching the game. I don't think this is a surprise. The frustration for Rangers will be that point of 2-0. The game shouldn't have looked like that thereafter. David Gray said in the press conference after, and we spoke about this in the morning briefing on Monday. But David Gray said we're a little bit gung-ho, a little bit trying to really get on the front foot and get after Rangers. If you don't quite get that right, they show you how good they are and how much they can punish you. We certainly felt that in the first 20 minutes. We were hanging in there. We tweaked the shape a bit, which definitely helped. We lost possession in the game at this point, but we were a lot more solid. So just want to speak about what that looked like. I've not actually got a still of it, but effectively, you can see this in the article. Hibs were jumping up with their wing backs. They're playing a back three, back five. First instance, they're jumping up with their wing backs onto the Rangers fullbacks, which leaves them in a back three. They changed that 20 minutes when they were 2-0 down to effectively defend in a back five. And you saw, circa Rangers a few years ago, the wide midfielders went out to press the fullback to keep that line of five. So here is Hibs' pressure intensity map. What's it called? Pressure frequency map in the first 30 minutes, Adam. You can see a lot of intensity out wide, but a lot of intensity around the box. They were really aggressive, and that gave Rangers space to play into. And I think in an end-to-end game, if it's about the quality of the two teams playing in a kind of mid-block into space, Rangers are much better at that, and that showed for the first 20 minutes. They created a lot more kind of half opportunities. This is Hibs' pressure map from 30 minutes to the hour mark. Now, they equalised the game within this point, but they sat off so much more. So they while David Gray is saying they surrendered control of the ball, I don't think they surrendered control of the match. And just one more, we'll get into possession after throwing it back to you, Adam, but passes per defensive action, difficult to say. But it's a helpful stat sometimes. If people don't know what it means, it's what it says in the tin. How many passes do you allow before? Do you allow the opposition before you attempt a defensive action? The lower the number, the higher your intensity of press. The higher the number, the lower your intensity of press, because you're maybe allowing, as you can see with this line here, Hibs were allowing 16 or 19 passes before defensive action between that 30 and 60-minute mark. So again, Adam, you can see the first 15 minutes, Hibs passes per defensive action is high relative to the game. It's 11. It then drops around about when they score that goal, and yet they get back into the game when they are playing a lot more conservatively. So it's weird, isn't it? Because normally you think of these games the other way around, where, like, I don't know, Rangers going to Kilmarnock under Gerrard, where it's Kilmarnock would keep it tight under Steve Clarke for like 80 minutes and then go for it right at the end. But it was almost as if Hibs went, the way we're going to get back into this game is by surrendering the ball and not giving Rangers space to play into.
Yep, and I don't know why everyone doesn't do that. They do frequently. I guess the the confusing part of that, I get, would be when Rangers are at home. Obviously, teams are going to surrender possession even more, but they're maybe less likely to come out and attack you on the counter.
They sit deeper. I think you have more of the territory at Ibrox, don't you? Because it's just natural. Like you're gonna the opposition. Maybe they're still playing a high line, but they're not coming out to press that aggressively. But you have more territory, I think, in how you build up.
I think this approach from Hibs nicely sums up the issues. We always do well at Easter Road. It's always classed a difficult place to go, and I don't think we've lost a top flight game there since 2006 or something. Was the stat on Sky, because I can't remember Hibs having more than one good defender at the same time in my lifetime. Potentially, so they're always not great. But what they do is they'll come out and attack. That suits Rangers, as we've said. It suits Rangers, whether it's Hibs, whether it's Spurs, whether it's Celtic. It suits Rangers that a team comes out and attack. We turn the game into a basketball game, and we can go and counter them. Our issue, and it's, I guess, credit to David Gray, but I would have been doing it from the start of the game, is whether he was just shutting up shop. We'll never really know whether he was shutting up shop and trying to just keep it at 2-0 and see what happens. I'm not sure, but that change that he made meant that Rangers had more possession in areas of the pitch that aren't going to threaten Hibs, but also when we did have possession, our quality on the ball, not even finishing, not even in the final third, just in general in terms of our build-up. I thought our quality on the ball was horrendous. Ridvan, Raskin, a couple of others in particular, who you would kind of count on that. We're just letting the ball go out of play, just really sloppy passes. So yeah, it's really difficult to pinpoint exactly what happened, but I think what we do know is that tweak that they made to sit back had an impact on the game. Whether that was them just trying to shut up shop and get to half time and see what happens, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But Rangers then kind of took the foot off the gas a little bit, and from that point, anything can happen. We've seen the first goal for Hibs was really, really poor, but that gets them in the game. Again, 100%. It gets their tails up, then Rangers are caught between two stools, I guess, of defending or trying to go and get back into the trying to go and get that 2-goal advantage back. So yeah, that's the key action I think in the game. Certainly in how Hibs managed to get back into the game. The reasons for them doing that, obviously we'll never really know.
Yeah, and I think the caveats from Clement's point of view is obviously he was missing like 5 or 6 defenders. So we saw these games, in particular when he first arrived, where the Rangers go a goal up, and because then they're a bit direct in the build-up, they're not losing the ball in bad areas, and the game can kind of peter out. And Rangers conceded effectively 3 set-piece goals because of a penalty as well. However, I don't think when you're adding those caveats, and again, Johnny and I were speaking about it on the morning briefing, is that game fine if Rangers have 2 commanding centre backs or even John Souttar and Leon Balogun? I think probably it is. But is there still a pattern of Rangers away from home not being able to control games? I think so. Yeah. And that extends to the St Mirren first half and Motherwell first half too, right? Where until both of those teams had to effectively, or not had to, but chose to sit back and defend the lead, Rangers didn't really have that dominance on the ball around their box.
Yeah, and I guess that's not really how it works in football. If we're saying if the same cross came into the box in the same circumstances and we had someone in there who was 6'5", would they head it away? Probably, but no two actions or no two chances are the same. Yeah. So there's too many variables there to really say. It's the same as we used to say, and I was quite bad for this as well. If Cyril Dessers gets into a position to shoot, if you could just parachute someone like Kemar Roofe or Jermaine Defoe in to finish it for him, then everything would be fine. It's the same sort of thing in reverse. So yeah, I agree. In isolation, yes, having someone in there who could head the ball more would be fine and would clear the ball away. I think we do lack that. If I'm going to be honest, I know we're talking about now being down to 5th and 6th choice centre halves. I'm not thrilled with any of the centre half choices, regardless of who is playing and who isn't. Certainly not thrilled with pairs. I think John Souttar is good, can't stay fit, but let's not be around the bush. He's been guilty of probably more defensive howlers than I think any of the guys that have replaced him, certainly in the centre of defence. So you can never say never in terms of what is actually going to happen. But yeah, understandably, in those situations, you want to look at it and think we have conceded a couple of set-piece goals. If we had a couple of other players in there who were a bit more physical and could command and could dominate their man, maybe we would have avoided those goals.
Yeah, this is Rangers' possession chart as well, which again shows first 15 minutes, not much of the ball at all, up until 20 minutes when they score that second goal. And then they can create opportunities through pressing. And what's the best performances of the season? Bar Kilmarnock, Malmo, Olympiacos, Celtic, Spurs, Nice, all games where they didn't dominate the ball. They can play into space. They're a really well-organised pressing team. You saw that in the Old Firm game. And it is always important in these discussions to cite the fact that Clement obviously knows a lot more about football than you or I. I think this is a stylistic thing, and it's the question of how much do you adapt in games? Because as you say, we didn't see him really change shape. And I think the criticism would be that when Cherney comes off and Diomande moves to the right, could you not maybe protect the centre a little bit more? Maybe not, because Hibs are playing with wing backs. I don't know. But I think you're right in saying he's a manager who does kind of stick to one shape out of possession. But to go back, to this possession radar, Adam, that you can then see that when Rangers generally dominate the ball, so between 16 minutes and 61 minutes, the indexes are 71% possession, 65% possession, 78% possession. They concede 2 goals. Now, what I will say is that I think there's a big difference in the 15 minutes before halftime and the 15 minutes after halftime. Rangers are actually, I think, kind of unlucky to not score a third goal. Igamane is a snapshot. Barami and Hadji getting one another's way. I know you want to speak about that when they're running through on goal. and then Hibs go up the other end and earn a penalty off the back of Rangers losing the ball, which we'll come on to speak about. But again, I guess that's just kind of, it's a very visual representation of generally whoever had less of the ball in this game scored. And I guess that was reflected in how much either team gave the ball away. But do you agree that there was a difference in the 15 minutes before halftime where I thought Rangers looked like they didn't really know what to do because they want to attack directly, but there wasn't the space to do it? After halftime for those 15 minutes, I thought they did it better. And I think actually the way that they attacked the box, as we'll come on to, there was, I think there was improvement in that area too.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the penalty comes at the worst time, obviously, there, because I thought we were doing pretty well, had control of it. Again, you don't know substitutions. The manager flits from one week having to rotate everyone to the second week not really rotating anyone. What that does to fitness, I don't really know. So who knows how that would have went over the next 10 minutes or so if that penalty hadn't been given. But I think that probably did just cap a decent 10 minutes for us. Again, we struggle with those setbacks. We've struggled with it before. If something happens that we feel aggrieved about, or any kind of setback, it probably takes us a little bit of time to get back into the swing of things. And I think we probably took 10-ish minutes to, once we got the subs on, we started to see maybe a little bit more freshness and impetus coming in there. So yeah, no, I would agree with it. But again, getting the opportunities when the games are in the balance, absolutely can't criticise Igamane for that snapshot, given what else he did in the game. But others really need to step up in terms of goal scoring and start to get those numbers. I know it's something that we have spoken about. I'm not a massive fan of Hadji and Barrie playing in the same team. Probably not even a massive fan of it at home when we've got all the possession and teams aren't going to attack. Definitely not a fan of it at the one ground where you know you're going to get tons and tons of counter attacks. I'm absolutely not a fan of having two ball players in there who are pretty slow, can't really run in behind, aren't going to necessarily dribble past a man and do them for pace. I think we needed a bit more variance there for me. But that's, like we said, the manager is sticking to his guns in terms of the style that he wants to play. I just don't think two ball playing number 10s really suit that style of play personally. But yeah.
Yeah, and probably again important to point out that it might look. I think it looks like in this example as well. Rangers had more of the ball at 2-1. Is that not what we're arguing for? And I think it is, but it's like the type of possession you have. Rangers had a lot of possession around the back of the team that didn't go anywhere and then resulted in eventually losing the ball. So I got a couple of examples, Adam, that we're going to jump into what Rangers was doing in possession and how they conceded the first free kick, how they conceded the penalty, and maybe what we can learn from that. So I'll play these GIFs through a couple of times. This is a really simple one. This is just the ball when Rangers are, I think they're 2-0 up. It might be 2-1. This is the type of run you see Diomande make all the time. And there's nothing like Rangers lose a ball in this situation. There's nothing inherently wrong with this, or it's opinion, like football's opinion. What do you think works better? However, what I think is more factual is that if you put possession up for grabs more often than not, you're introducing more variance into a game. And if you're ahead, you probably want to minimize that variance. So if you look at, like, I know Arsenal are in a completely different league to Rangers, but the criticism of Arteta is maybe always gone too far down the other extreme where he's just trying to decrease variance with absolutely everything. But that's what the top teams try to do, right? So in this situation, I'm thinking it's clearly instructive for Diomande to run in behind there, to make that seam run. Igamane's dropping deep on the other side. The point is, rather than kind of holding the ball, getting to half-time, drawing Hibs out, with Hibs not jumping up to press Rangers, they're now still looking to go directly in behind. And that's a tactical thing, isn't it? That's the decision to, instead of holding the ball in the middle of the pitch, instead of playing with a double pivot, the phrase I always use is ball progression over ball possession, which again, it's not inherently a bad thing, I don't think. But I don't think that lends itself to control when you're 2-0 up away from home and the opposition to maybe change something.
No, I agree. I think remember last season, I don't know when it would have been. It might even have been before Clement came in. There was a lot of chat about Raskin's poor passing and sort of wayward passing because he was playing so deep. I never really felt that was fair, because to me he was trying to break the lines and trying risky passes and trying to get things moving in a team that were really struggling. I feel like Diomande is similar just now, but
Yeah, I agree.
but maybe worse in a sense that I don't see huge amounts of risky passing happening. I just see quite slack passes at times, and I know there's been a few in this game now. I like him. I definitely like the idea of how he could play and how he could connect in a well functioning team, but I don't think he's got the defensive awareness that we would need if we are going to play with a double pivot. I know it's not quite that, so maybe it's. I do agree it's tactical, but also I do agree that when he gets the ball, sometimes he can be a little bit slack with it, which leads to a turnover.
Yeah.
Here, yeah, I kind of get your point here. It is a little bit too gung ho, but we know that it's no big surprise. Again, we said on one of the shows, the midfield issues haven't gone away. It's just the fact that Raskin and Diomande can cover a lot of ground, and they're dealing with that. I guess this is one of these variables that you mentioned there, that in those rare occasions that both of those players can't put in a superhuman amount of effort to cover distance, then there are going to be gaps that are shown because the tactical setup isn't as structured off the ball as we would like it to be.
I think it's just like we look at the distance that Raskin now has to recover, and this shows for the penalty. When you've got one, your number eight's going in behind. I just think it's like when you're 2-0 up, just kill the game. Like keep the ball, but keep it
Yep.
in a manner that you want to keep the ball, not in terms of still trying to go directly into in behind. Diomande, I agree. Like something I think people forget about him is when he was playing with John Lundstrom, he was the one in the Raskin role. He wasn't a number
Yep.
6, always in possession, but quite often Lundstrom would like push out to the left hand side because he wasn't able to receive in like a press resistant way, the same way Diomande was. You saw in the Celtic game and in other games how good he is under pressure. I think it
Yeah.
still feeds into that overall thing of this Rangers team is like when they're not pressed, when the requirement
Yep.
is can you set the tempo with the ball? They're not as
I'm
good
not
at that
sure
in
he's.
the
I'm
moment.
not sure he's that. I'm not sure he's that guy. No, that's the thing. I guess that people have a. First of all, if you cost over £4 million, the expectation is you have to be good. You have to be very good. One of the best players in the league, or even in comparable leagues. But also, I think when people talk about a central midfielder, we still think, are you a defensive midfielder that can be a playmaker and go forwards, or are you an attacking number 8/number 10 that's going to go burst into the box and score goals? I think we're still stuck in that a little bit. So the guys that fall through the cracks in terms of the nuances of that, like your Diamandes, like your Kamaras, we probably do struggle a little bit to say, well, I'm not sure what you're actually doing. And I think that is a little bit unfair. What I would say is, completely to your point, I don't think he's a tempo setter. I don't think he's a defensive midfielder. I don't think he's a goal scorer, or a kind of box to box midfielder. I think people will probably say, well, what is he then? To me, I think he probably is someone who's quite crucial in build up, can connect to play when he's being pressed, very press resistant. But yeah, to your point, if you do then get a lot of space, I'm not sure he's the guy that's going to be driving forward or threading passes through the lines, etc. So again, it's one of those ones. Good player, but is he playing in the right setup that gets the most out of his strengths? And I think it wouldn't be unfair to say over the year that he's been here. I think that'd be fairly accurate. Yeah.
I'd like to see him in like a really high possession team that progress slowly because the thing is like
Yeah.
when you make this run, you're probably not only knackered, but it's like just a selfless off ball run for the team. And like that's not while that's probably an impressive thing to do, like the manager will want him to do that. It doesn't like show your technical qualities as much as if you spin in and take it in the number 6. So I
Yeah.
think that you saw in the Old Firm game, I think just how good he can be under pressure, especially when he receives the ball with a man at his back.
I think, yeah, I agree. I think this, I'm not sure if that's the example that I've got in my head in terms of there was actually a nice bit of positional rotation and he went beyond
On the
and cut
right,
the
yeah,
ball
there
in.
was quite a lot of that in the first 20 minutes. But that's again when the Hibs wing backs are jumping up onto Ridvan, and Ridvan as a wrong-footed fullback can play against the press.
He is good in those moments. I think Diamande, we just don't
Yeah,
see them often enough, and that's a tactical thing. We sort of, it's almost like he's got the handbrake on a little bit, and he's not, again, not quite that defensive midfielder, not quite the attacking midfielder. I do think in the final third he does have moments where he can pick a pass, and he does do quite well. We just don't see it. And again, it's to your point there. It's the two-man midfield means that we're never going to be everywhere that they want them to be because we're fighting against the tide all the time.
Just another quick example. This is a move. This is when Diomande gives a free kick away. I think in the lead up to the Hibs' first goal. So again, it's not to say, this means that Rangers concede, but it's just another example of them probably losing the ball when they don't have to. They go direct here when they've got a 4v2, but they play into a 4v2. I think it is by Rami and Diomande here. I'll play this through a couple of times. Really simple, but again, you'll remember it from the game. Again, this is if Rangers manage to get through in this situation, which they probably should, because Barrie takes a good touch and Diamande's, I think it's a good touch. There's some breakdown wherever, but again, it's more of that kind of same of you're going forward quickly from this position when maybe because Hibs aren't committing. In the first 20 minutes, Hibs were committing three men to this situation, whereas at this moment they're committing two. So you have a 4v2.
Yeah.
Not anything necessarily that spectacular, but I think again, if you're looking at the set piece failings, we're not going to go into the set pieces today, but how do you concede set piece failings? Again, I think that's about trying to decrease these moments.
No, I completely agree. I think as well, when you're less gung ho with your press, then it's weird because teams are probably more likely to go long because you're covering space rather than attacking. So if you're attacking Liam Kelly, he might be able to pass round as we've seen, but if you're just covering and saying we'll come out with the ball and break us down, they're probably not going to, so they will just go a bit longer.
Last example of Rangers on the ball is the lead up to the penalty. Very similar. Raskin, the game's 2-1 at this point. As I say, I think Rangers started the second half well, and it's important to mention that they're slightly unfortunate. I don't think it was a mirror to the last 15 minutes of the first half. But Raskin looks for this 1-2. Again, you see one of the double pivots moving higher, very high and wide Rangers. Like if you look at that central space, it's a lot of space for one man to cover, which Diomande does. However, Cherney loses the ball. It's just a facet of his play. Sometimes he can turn it over quite a lot. But I also think, again, it's like a byproduct of the type of football Rangers are playing. And we see this with Diomande. Diomande wins it here. This pass is so interesting because I just wonder, like, how much is that down to an individual? How much is that down to, like, an individual, like the tactical approach of go forward quickly, miss out a man in every situation? Because Bayrami loses it here, and we spoke about this off air a little bit, but I thought Bayrami, before we get to the actual incident, but Bayrami, while he did a really good like kind of tactical job on McGregor, but I think for both this goal, this penalty and the first goal, you see him. Maybe his intensity defensively isn't always great because if it's someone else's man, he'll kind of pass it on. I think he was closest to Boyle, and Boyle takes that shot in the box. But again, you're looking at like, what's the central coverage like? Why is that pass happening there instead of this one? And it's not the reason I'm highlighting that, Adam, is not to say, a professional footballer played a bad pass. What do I know about it? The extent of my footballing career is I play six-a-side on a Monday night, which is back tonight, which is very exciting. But it's like, why is that? You know, is that tactical? Is that individual? And again, it's more of this ball progression over ball possession.
Yeah, I think I said on this, I don't like Bajrami and Hadji in the same team. There's not enough variance there. I would even put Cherney in there as well. Obviously Cherney is a winger, and he's different to them in terms of his profile, but he does like to cut in and make little passes and drop deep and sort of play behind. So in a way, if all three of them are kind of wanting to do that, there's nobody really going beyond. It's not very often we see Cherney making that run beyond and having a ball through for him to cut back.
Which is probably why you've got one of Raskin and Diomande doing it.
Which is probably why one of those, which is fine. Again, I don't mind that as long as people are doing it, as long as there's variance, as long as it's one time it's going to be the 8 going forwards, one time it's going to be the winger trying to go in behind, even the fullback at times would be good to see again. But I think those three become a little bit samey. And I can't criticize. I thought Cherney was pretty poor in this game. However, pops up with a great assist. I can't criticize Cherney. He's got 15 goals and assists so far for the Rangers this season in 6 months' time. So overall, that whole risk reward thing, you absolutely can't criticize. He's done very, very well. Hadji has only just come into the team recently and has been shown more. Bayrami, I can see good points. I can, but I just can't get out of my head that you're bringing in a player like that for their quality in the final third. There's no debate about that. You're not bringing in someone like Bayrami to play as a number 10 and then go nuts about how good he is out of possession or how good he is at covering or sitting on Callum McGregor. That's a fundamental misunderstanding of what that role is for me. Bayrami needs to be judged on what he does on the ball in the final third, and there's just too many times for me. Again, yes, he got an assist, and it was a good assist in this game. That's his first assist in the league this year, and I don't know what that is, close to 20 games.
How many minutes do you think has he played? Do you think? Because I kind of like I agree with you in that I think the end of this clip is just showing that like Hadji has a big distance to cover, right? And it's like we're not going to talk about the penalty because enough people do that.
Yeah.
But you're still like the point being you're still conceding that kind of dangerous attack. You're maybe seeing a little bit of I thought at points in the second half. Hadji in transition, obviously that's not his strongest quality. But just sorry, on your Bayrami point, I would like to see, I agree. I think if you look at that three behind the striker, the odd moments of real quality, which we'll look at before we finish, but you're missing like either an in behind runner or someone with a bit of pace. I think Bayrami, he's maybe started 3-4 games at number 10. Some of those like St Mirren away when the ball went over his head for the entirety of the first half. I thought he ran in behind actually quite well on a couple of occasions. And I actually think he's quite fast, not maybe with the ball, and especially not out wide with the ball, but he can shift. I would like to see him. I think there's similar arguments to like Diomande as the ball going over his head too much or whatever. I'd like to see him with an out-and-out winger on the outside. But I do take your point that what you're saying, and I guess, again, like where's the fault with this? Is it down to Clement, the player? When you spend that money on a player, you need them to kind of come in and be, for where Rangers are at the moment, you need them to be a real game changer. And if you're looking at him alongside Diomande domestically, are they doing enough of that? And the answer is no at the moment, but where does the fault lie? That was a very, very convoluted point. I apologise.
It's okay. I've made many of those in my time. I agree. I think that's the issue. Both Hadji and Bayrami need someone on the outside of them that is going to be a Cortez on the left hand side. I was going to say Matondo there, but someone who is quick. Even Igamane, I know we've spoken about before, and it's a bit of a ridiculous thing to say when he's just had a perfect hat trick. But even someone like that playing off the left with a focal point up top, and then you've got Hadji or Bayrami in the 10. I think that changes the shape of things a lot better. We don't really have someone who will run at attackers in the way that Igamane does. We need two of those in my mind. Someone who can dribble past a man, someone who can go either side. I think we need two of those in there with the ball playing number 10 and with Czerny as a kind of inverted winger on that side who can score. I think that's a well-functioning or a nicely profiled attack. But Bayrami, I just think we need more. I really do. He's played, I just checked there when you were talking, he's played close to 1,000 minutes and it's 1 goal, 1 assist. Hadji's got 700 minutes now.
Has he?
Yeah.
Wow.
Hadji's got 750 minutes, I think it was, and he's got 1 goal and 4 assists. And obviously Hadji's been more condensed in terms of what he's played, but getting back up to speed, all that sort of stuff. I just think it needs more. Personally, you're right. He's not played in the number 10 that much, but some of the things that I'm talking about in terms of when he gets into the final third and he has a decision to make, Bayrami, more often than not, it's not quite coming off. He's not quite doing it. I don't know what that is, whether it's sharpness or not. I'm not 100%, but I just go back to that point. If you're bringing in someone like that with that skill set of number 10 and creator, we probably need a little bit more there. He's not really been that guy when he was at Sassuolo in terms of getting you to 10 goals, 10 assists or anything like that. So maybe it's unlikely, but again, it comes back to what have you been bought for? Because if you've been bought for your out of possession stuff, again, I agree, quick, but not fast enough for it really to make a difference. He's not going to go past anybody and do them for speed in a kind of ridiculous way that's going to take them out of the game. So yeah, if you're not contributing as a pure number 10 and you're maybe not, we've already got a number 10 who can do some of those things as well, I'm kind of struggling to see the point in it. And it may be that he was a Hadji replacement and we expected Hadji to go. I completely get that and I'm completely on board with that. But I think now that we've got other players fit, I would like to see, and not even that, because we had the two Danilo and Igamane playing for a fair bit. Those two sort of goal scorers with a 10 and with Czerny, and we were doing pretty well there. And for whatever reason, we've sort of moved away from it again to try and fit in both Hadji and Bayrami. I just don't think it works. I just don't like it. And I think definitely in these type of games, it doesn't work. For me, after the penalty, I would have had Danilo on right away because you don't lose anything. I think Danilo is busier than both of them off the ball. I think his out of possession. I do. I think he's out of possession work is fine, but then he's got that bigger output in terms of he's going to get a goal if he plays for any more than 15, 20 minutes. So I would add him on right away. I don't think you would lose too much there in terms of off the ball, personally.
Yeah.
But that's just opinion.
I think I'm probably a little bit higher on Bayrami than you. I do agree that I think it's like the subs probably needed to be made quicker because they go 2-0 up, right, in an end-to-end game, and both of them, we'll look at it now because I want to talk about Hamza Igamane because we're going on. But they both have fantastic assists in space. I think the point is at the start of the second half, maybe you need to change something out there when it's more about the game going the other way. But anyway, we'll go on. We'll do another podcast about those two players. Hamza Igamane, Adam, what a player. I cannot remember the last time a Rangers player kind of came from obscurity. And I think by the time this video goes out, Tuesday morning, we'll have a piece on the website, the Rangers Review, which is looking at his contract length and how close he is to a Morocco call-up, looking as well at his underlying numbers. He's actually overperformed his expected goals by almost double. And while that might slow down a bit, I think looking at his finishing so far, it's certainly not going to flip the other way. There's just not much he can't do. And it's kind of like everyone's bad for getting overexcited about players. But you watched him yesterday and you're like, wow, like this guy is really good. And he can finish. It's a perfect hat trick. He can finish off both sides. My one criticism of him, and this was, I think I spoke about it after the St Johnstone game, where he did a lot of good work to help, or some good work to help Rangers get the ball into the box, but then he was often like hanging outside the box. And it feels as if, now I'm sure he won't finish like this every single game, but his positioning was brilliant. And this was a really good aspect of Rangers play. Often what you see strikers do is they push down towards the goal. So where the Hibs two defenders are there, Bashiri and Miller, and Bashiri and the left centre back whose name escapes me. Often you see a striker go as close as they can to goal when the space often is in the cutback because the defence gets dragged backwards, and you see that's why cutbacks are a thing. That's why they're the move that coaches try to implement all the time. And you saw that for every single one of Igamane's goals, and a fantastic cross on each occasion as well. Similarly here, the header he moves off the back of the defence. The third goal I really liked, Adam, because Hibs had clearly grown wise to this at half-time. And this was when, as they were after the break, Rangers, I think, did better at sustaining pressure around the box and attacking the box. Czerny hits the byline, more variation on the right and the left because Hadji can go on his left foot as well. And Igamane is being marked. There is a Hibs defender who's kind of staggered as opposed to that straight line you see in the first half. But Igamane still gets away from him, finishes at the front post. So I guess that's why people will be frustrated watching the game yesterday, because we should have just been talking about how good Igamane is and not Rangers away form. Is there any more superlatives you want to throw at Hamza Igamane?
No, I think that's one of the games I watched when we did the scouting of him in the summer for those articles was the Morocco, can't remember now, under-23 game against Wales. I think he got a hat trick, and it was the same kind of performance as this and Nice. And you can never really tell, especially with Rangers, what a player is going to do. But I think I said at the time, if we got the guy playing in that game, if we got him regularly, then it's going to be pretty fun. The thing I like about both these goals is how different they are. Obviously they're both on different feet, and they're kind of similar finishes from the same area. But it's the build up that I like. Because the first one presses, wins the ball back, Hibs are in disarray, and that's maybe why they're a bit flustered and they want to hit. They want to get as close to the keeper as they can, but he's the only one with a little bit of sense to say, I'm going to say back a little bit. On this one, we spoke about it off air. I like the fact that this was recycled, that we tried to score, couldn't quite manage it, worked our way down the other side, Journey with a really good cutback, and you just see Igamane, just that second you mentioned there, they are actually trying to mark him specifically, but he just creates a little bit of separation. I can't remember if he not pushes him, but I can't remember if he just pushes off from the guy.
Yeah.
Or he makes that sort of bended run that almost takes them out of the line of sight. So two pretty similar finishes, albeit on either side, but the way that he, I guess, created the space for himself to be found on both was different and was really interesting. And yeah, I think to your point earlier on about he does drift out a little bit. Again, that comes down to, okay, well, if that's what this player wants to do as his natural inclination and he's performing very, very well, then it's up to the management to say, let's let him play his game naturally. What we then need to do is get more support into the box somehow, whether that is Danilo playing as a 10 and attacking that space, whether it's Igamane starting out a little bit wider, whether it's two up top, I'm not sure. But when you've got, similar to Journey on the other side, when you've got someone who can go on either side and is going to cut in, let's give him someone who can bomb on the outside of him, whether it's Diomande, whether it's Ridvan, whether it's another fullback, so that he's got that option there for the cutback. Let's not make him be a defensive winger and track back all the time, because that doesn't suit him. With Igamane, I think play to his strengths, and then if that creates a gap somewhere else, try and fill that with a player who can go and get into the box and manipulate the defence. So yeah, I thought he was terrific. He's been terrific. I think that's what is it, 11 goals in 10 games. Can I agree with your point? It is going to tail off. We always say, oh, it doesn't look like it's going to tail off. It's definitely going to tail off. But if he doesn't end the season with, I'd be very surprised if he doesn't end the season with between 20 and 25 goals, which would be, I think, terrific for someone like that coming in, especially when he only really started playing regularly 5 weeks ago in Nice.
Yeah, literally Nice away. And it was kind of, everyone was surprised, myself included, when he came in for that game. But you look at the variation of goals he scored, like the Motherwell game.
The Kilmarnock finish as well.
Bucharest, Nice away. I just think that you're looking at him at the moment and you're thinking, I didn't see that type of like poacher's performance from him coming that quickly.
No.
Yeah, tons to his game. We'll focus more on him at some point, but an encouraging start. I think we've covered quite a lot. In summary, some really good attacking play from Rangers. They maybe didn't react quickly enough, didn't take the sting out of the game enough with the ball. This is going to go out before the game away at Dundee. The Rangers have not many central defenders. And I guess if you're looking at it optimistically, Adam, you're saying, well, if you can just not concede a couple more set pieces and whatever, then there's improvements in how Rangers attack. They did sustain pressure around the opposition box more. If you're looking at it pessimistically, you're saying it's still only 3 runs away from home in 11 games. And we'll see what happens on Thursday night. Anything to add? Any Bayrami or Hadji takes, or have we done that enough?
Yeah, I think we've done enough on that one. It'll be interesting to see what it comes up with. Obviously, centre halves. I guess we only have 2, don't we? Assuming we're not counting Clinton and Ciala, so I would imagine it would be Proper and one of King and Ciala coming into that game. Whether we get someone else in, I'm not sure. That's a slight criticism for me. It's not been a surprise that we've needed the centre half for weeks. I would have tried my utmost, maybe not for the Celtic game because we know how tricky that can be, but I'd certainly have tried my utmost to have someone at least in the building that would be in consideration right now probably for this Dundee game. So that's a bit of a shame. Hopefully we get that done. And yeah, I completely agree on your point. Maybe it's a little bit of nitpicking with Hadji and Bayrami, but I think the attack is doing really, really well, and it's just still letting us down a little bit in some key moments. But 100% in that Hibs game that we've discussed, the attack were absolutely fine. Bayrami, Hadji, Cherny get 3 assists. Igamane gets 3 goals. I think it's clear to see where the issues were in that game. But if we're looking for perfection or scalability or a little bit more flexibility, it would be good to get another player in that attack who is quick, can beat a man, and ideally can finish chances.
Scalability, I like that. I'm gonna note that down when I write that in a piece next week.
I don't even know if that was the right word, but we'll go for it.
Yeah, Okay, we'll leave it there. We'll be back soon. Thank you for watching. Please do like and subscribe. You can become a Rangers Review extra member on YouTube as well and get these videos free, up to 3 extra videos early every single week. But until then, thanks for watching. We'll speak to you soon, and bye for